Hello, this is Anthony Wall, boxing alone, but I call myself Romulus. And this is science. For example, a Romulus theory. But youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. Here you are. Boxing A through Z are in a semi-ancient trap with another name, not A through Z. To begin with the discernment of them, a breaching method is a scientific value at countries A through Z too. Replaced where nature shows us it was and is a scientific value, and where founders communicated this to us. What the founders communicated is distinct from what they said. No, they communicated about that too. See, everyone found themselves with other communicators for James Madison. How are they going to interpret Marbury versus Madison? Exactly the way the breaching method knew. Everyone would. Not A through Z. It keeps people blaming other things, others, or selves for things it caused and keeps. Like saying, that's just in for long until I heard, man, the species body. Once again, I'll play the game. It's games. In evolution science, it brings fruits and gifts means out of nowhere, and or else we sense. See, it's totally opposite how everyone is systems now individually grouped together to act a little terrier from the one that is hyper simultaneous. That one that shows us there are three bodies of time, as three parts of time that are bound, distinctly from how there are five parts, which comes with discernment. If you pay attention to it, it's about the Trinity and about how it's, and the difference about how those five parts, which goes with teaching us how we're hyper-additional nature. But it's also the Trinity wherein how three distinct identities of hyper-simultaneous are its own. As that identity that has the extent of the past that you know is true always. There's an extent now of active group realities grouped that you know is true always. And there's an extent of the future, like the seasons, the value of the seasons, you know is true always. Those three are parts of time. You know also there's a part beyond this and there's a part before that. And there's a part with the grouped realities that we don't know about. See, this breaching method took the sciences and how they share an identity of relativity, slash hyper-relativity, and measured and maintains, just like it measures and maintains self-valued roles, self-valued, with other communicated for James Madison and for our founders behind him and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to that plan, and he agreed to help that plan. So there's distinct natures of founders, and founders are distinct from presidents. You could say, oh, well, a president is technically a founder. Yes, but then you know that we have to appreciate the three natures of our Native Americans. Native Americans, the founders behind James Madison and George Washington's plan together. And the rest of the presidents and founders, they had to counter-extort and force them to get told to get the Constitution unabridged and to defend Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. You see, but we have that. We have the ancient republic has been only remembered since before the religious messengers, criminally re-engineered, and the fault of it was not a name A through Z. And what it caused, it made people react to its factual nature. They knew that they would have to blame other things, others, and or themselves. Little black guy and friends with the counter obfuscation of it. That's what they did. So they did the same thing, and they counter-extorted the whole world, though. Same way the whole world, A through Z, is extorted. Everyone knows suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. Can't afford to have discerned that which is hypernated pure, and which is all things, even the breaching method that was sustained against Native Americans but since before our founders were born. And when our founders were born, they didn't have free speech. Everyone's speech was used to measure and maintain their collusions with everyone against each other, for what it set up. Had slavery entrenched north and south. That's worse than obfuscated, because this breaching method measured and maintained a whole bunch of identities of logic, reason, and natures needed to pretend they could speak for the law or integrity, positive or negative, properly. No one had properly told to them about the difference between criminal and citizen's nature, positive. So there are things that are unnatural, like slavery. And the only reason we haven't used that as reason, hyper-evidential yet, is because people say things like, oh, if something's not natural, how would it be? Because some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness, per nature's system too. We don't even need to be formal lawyers. We could discern all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the difference of that, the courts, the state judicial branch offices, state corrections offices, colonial equivalents, semi-ancient equivalents. See that referred to as ancient times now. This breaching method knew that nature would continually demonstrate to countries A through Z, people A through Z. There's a breaching method is one of the things that nature itself, science shows. A fact-cheap nature breaching method is one of the things commonly, non-distinctly against every modern country, A through Z. Rather than value, how should we have something commonly against ourselves? It's self-valued. We're in how the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born, for torture, extortion, and slavery method against themselves. And that's what they communicated for us to communicate. See, but we have other side for themselves, using truths for lies, as they knew they would. So everyone was supposed to, well, you guys won't even allow honesty about the extortion of George Washington. How are you going to allow honesty about James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan? You guys had taught to you, for example, your child used to have taught to you that it was about a tea tax. That was the narrative, because everyone had to hide roles breaking the laws with your syntax. I learned at Central Connecticut State University notes that if you were even found out to be speaking about, have been, even suggesting building outside of the basic suburban home structure that was designed. There were homes in America that were built before America's founders were born, before the Declaration of Independence. In other words, those were all colonies, so entrenched in having been roles with that sustained so long since before modern religious messengers. See, this breaching method knew it could force, trick, hurt, and persuade the phenomenon of names at countries to have to defend themselves as fact-cheap nature using identity, as locations, areas, and states would have to too, and it would force each other to defend fact-cheap nature reactions, non-reactions, things like that, names uses that couldn't defend that and afford to relinquish complete fact-cheap nature possession / hyper-possession of all quality aspects of nature, of locations, areas, and states, everywhere the species body stands. And so, in other words, vaccines, I teach those things, but wrong. Thank you.